Greetings, one and all. Welcome to the inaugural EIHL Weekly Roundup podcast. This is a new idea I have for a series where I will be talking through all the events that took place over the last week in Britain's elite ice hockey league. Whether it's the game results, the latest news, or predictions for the upcoming week, I will have it all. Now, before we begin, I would like to mention that it will be up to how well this video performs in terms of views, likes or dislikes, and comments as to whether I keep this idea going into a second episode and for the coming weeks. For example, if this video gets less than 100 views in a week, then I will likely not bother with another episode, as I'm going to be super busy with university in the coming weeks for quite a while. And it will become a situation where I will have limited time to record content throughout the week. So I will focus my efforts towards videos that I think my general viewer base would want to see. So if this isn't one of those videos, then it's going to be left on the shelf for quite a while. And finally, I have no idea how long this podcast is going to be. I'm hoping for a 30-minute to an hour runtime with an upper limit of 90 minutes dependent on how many games or how busy each week is, just so I can keep everything relatively precise and make sure I get through everything I want to talk about, whilst having the opportunity to go into further detail on bigger items of discussion, should I want to. Anyway, now that that is all out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? We shall begin with the scores over the last week. However, this week we shall also talk about the Challenge Cup games that took place last week in the so-called Week 1, just to get everyone up to speed with all the scores that we've had so far. So, in Week 1, we started off with the Dundee Stars 3, the Belfast Giants 2 in a shootout victory for the Stars. Riley Staddle's lone shootout goal for either team in the shootout round gives the Stars their first victory and the first victory of the 17-18 EIHL season. Next, we had the Braehead Clan and the Manchester Storm, with the Braehead Clan taking a 7-5 victory over the Storm. The Scottish side saw a 3-point night from Mike Embark to give the team their first win in the Challenge Cup group stages. And then the last game for Week 1, we had the Manchester Storm and the Braehead Clan once again, but this time it was Manchester 4, Braehead 1. Manchester got their revenge the next night with a 3-point night from Mike Hammond to give their side their first win in the 17-18 Challenge Cup group stages. So that was the Week 1 roundup. Dundee got a win, Braehead and Manchester split 2 games. Then we move on to Saturday the 9th of September. This was this week, just 2 days ago. There was a game between the Sheffield Steelers and the Manchester Storm, a Challenge Cup game also. And the results were Sheffield 6, Manchester 3. Matthew Waugh, God save the King, his 3-point night gives the defending playoff champion Sheffield Steelers their first win in the Challenge Cup round. Then the next game was between the Nottingham Panthers and the Coventry Blaze, which was an Elite League game, so the first non-Challenge Cup game of the season so far. And the results were Nottingham 4 and Coventry 3. Brett Perlini's pair of goals and Raphael Boussier's 2 assists lead the Panthers over the Coventry Blaze for their first win of the new season and the first win of the new league, I might add. Brett Perlini, of course, is comes from Canada, but he is actually from Guildford originally, I believe. So he is a British player and he gets a pair of goals in his debut, so that's pretty impressive for the Nottingham side. Then, a game between the Belfast Giants and the new Guildford Flames, which was also a league game. And this result was Belfast 6, Guildford 4. Colin Shields' 3-point night stops the Flames from securing their first win in the Elite League since joining from the Premier League. Then lastly, on the 9th of September, we had a game between the Cardiff Devils and the new Milton Keynes Lightning side, which was a Challenge Cup game. And this score was Cardiff 5 and Milton Keynes 2. Patrick Asselin and Sean Bentvolio pick up a pair of points as the defending Elite League season champions and Challenge Cup champions stop the Lightning from getting their first Elite League win. Then on the 10th of September, the Sunday, we had a game between the Sheffield Steelers and the Nottingham Panthers in the Challenge Cup. And the results was Sheffield 6, Nottingham 5. Levi Nelson scores the tie-breaking goal in the final second of the game as the Steelers fight back from a 3-0 deficit to take their second win of the Challenge Cup and to remain undefeated in the Challenge Cup group stages so far. Then there was a game between the Manchester Storm and the Coventry Blaze, and the result was 4-1 to the Manchester Storm. Matt Becker's 4-point night gives the Storm the W against a struggling Blaze side so far early in this season. Then the Milton Keynes Lightning and the Belfast Giants take a game against each other. This one was a league game, and the result was Milton Keynes 6 and Belfast 3. Hook and Doucette score a pair of goals each for the Lightning, and they hold off the Giants to secure their first Elite League win in franchise history. So congratulations to Milton Keynes on getting their first win as part of the Elite Ice Hockey League. Hopefully there's many more to come for the Milton Keynes side. Then there was a game between the Guildford Flames and the Cardiff Devils, and the result was Guildford 8, Cardiff 4. Yes, you heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. Guildford 8, Cardiff 4. Ian Waters' hat-trick performance for the Flames led the newly promoted team to their first franchise win in Elite League franchise history over the defending Elite League and Champions Cup champions. Wow, that's a pretty good way to kickstart your first win in franchise history, beating one of the best teams in the league. So, good job to Guildford. Also, congratulations to you. Hopefully, many more wins to come. So, next up on the podcast, we shall take a look at the important news stories over the week. So we've just gone through all of the games that have taken place currently so far in the league. I tried to look up the accurate results of the table and the Challenge Cup table. The Challenge Cup table was relatively accurate, but the actual league table itself on the Elite Ice Hockey League website hadn't been updated yet, so I couldn't give you a list of who was at the top, who had actually played games, and where people were sitting. So that's a bit of a shame, but of course I can't show you if it's not there. So we'll move on and talk about the important news stories over this week. We shall start, as we have mentioned slightly earlier, by talking about the Guildford Flames and the Milton Keynes Lightning, the latest teams to join the Elite League. They fall short in their EIHL debuts in their inaugural season, but they do get their first wins the very next day on the Sunday, the 10th of September. If at first you don't succeed, win the next day. That's what I'm learning from this, ladies and gentlemen. So congratulations once again to the Flames and Lightning for getting your first wins. And welcome to the Elite League. Hopefully you guys will stick around for years to come and keep the Elite League the most competitive British circuit out there. The next piece of news. Ashley Tate signed a short-term deal with the Milton Keynes Lightning. The 42-year-old Tate has played in over 600 Elite League games with the Coventry Blaze and Sheffield Steelers and 100 Team GB games, and currently holds the league's all-time lead in points with over 570 and counting. It was, I think, 571 when the news was released, but I think he's gone on to score a few points since the start of the league, so it's over 570. That's all you need to know. Milton Keynes have struggled with a few injuries during pre-season, and to add a talented forward like Tate, even though he is getting quite old, who is known for his goal-scoring prowess to help on a short deal of about 4 weeks, I think it is, gives the Lightning some security whilst the injured players start to recover, whilst not having to commit to a whole year on a contract for Tate if he doesn't produce for the team. So I think this was a good move for the team. I think it was a good move for Ashley Tate. It's a win-win for either side, because if he does produce really well and puts up loads of points and is a leader on the team, he can get a contract for the entire year, you know? I think it makes sense. In other news, Coventry Blaze sign Edgars Bebris to a full-time deal following a successful trial with the club. The 26-year-old Bebris featured in all 7 of Coventry's pre-season games and has 319 points in 364 English Premier Ice Hockey League games across 7 seasons. A guy that can put up points like that, like Bebris can, definitely, I think, deserves a look for the Elite League full-time, which he has. And I'm glad that a player of this calibre has been given his chance to make a mark on the Elite League. So congratulations to Bebris getting himself a full-time contract for a year for the Coventry Blaze side. I mean, the Coventry Blaze side struggling a little bit, but it's a start, you know. Start bottom, build your way up. In other news, the Sheffield Steelers have signed Juha Koivitsu, I think that's how you pronounce it, to a 4-week short-term deal as injury cover, as the Sheffield Steelers have had trouble with injuries hitting their players late into the pre-season. So this is a good signing, in my opinion, I think, for the Steelers, and Koivitsu did actually score a goal and added an assist in his debut for the club, which was the 6-5 victory over the Nottingham Panthers in the Challenge Cup. I mean, if you keep playing like that, you'll definitely get yourself a long-term deal, Koivitsu, so why not? Goal and an assist? Why not? Keep going. In other news, with one of the 4 goals, I'm not sure which one, I couldn't find the stats, in their game against the Coventry Blaze, the Nottingham Panthers have scored their 700th goal in the Elite Ice Hockey League. the 700th goal in the history of the league since it started in 2003. I tried to look for the stats to see where this compared to other teams and who scored the most goals out of any team, but I couldn't find it when I really looked. So I'm just going to assume that they're pretty high up the list, probably maybe Cardiff or Sheffield are up there as well, but they're probably one of the top ones. So 700 goals for the Nottingham Panthers, that's quite a lot. Moving on, the Sheffield Steelers forward Matthew Wagh's appearance in the game against Manchester marked his 200th Elite Ice Hockey League game played, all with the Sheffield Steelers side. Matthew Wagh has made himself known as one of the best players in the Elite League over the last 4 seasons and is one of the key pieces that keep Sheffield a competitive team every year. So congratulations on 200 games to Matthew Wagh. God save the King. And lastly, the Scottish Elite Cup took place over this weekend, and the Braehead clan took the victory over the Fife Flyers in the final game in the Scottish Elite Cup with a result of 3-1. So Braehead took first, Fife took second, and then in the third and fourth place game, the Edinburgh Capitals managed to defeat the Dundee Stars 3-0 to take third place in the Scottish Elite Cup. So Braehead first, Fife second, Edinburgh third, and Dundee fourth. Moving on, we have my Game of the Week. This is an award I will give out every week for the game I think was the best game of the week. Pretty self-explanatory if you ask me. This week, the award goes to the 6-5 victory for the Sheffield Steelers over the Nottingham Panthers. The Steelers were able, as I said, to fight back from a 3-0 deficit with a last-second goal by Levi Nelson to take their second victory in the Challenge Cup group stages. It was an intense game full of some of the Elite League's best talent, players flying all over the ice, and I definitely recommend you see it for yourself. Highlights can be seen on the Steelers YouTube channel, with the full game able to be purchased from Steelers TV. I think it's £10 and you can have the game forever. You can download it and watch it whenever you want. So I think that's quite good. Go and check it out, guys. Next segment up now, which I will be calling Prediction Time. This is where I will be making my predictions for next week's games and who I think will win. I will explain who is playing in every individual game, give my prediction, and maybe a little bit as to why I think they'll win. Then I'll move on to the next game and do the same. It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. So we start with the 16th of September, Dundee versus Belfast. I think Belfast are going to take this one. Belfast are looking relatively strong. They did take a loss to the Milton Keynes Lightning this weekend, but they have got themselves on the win column early in the season, which is good. Belfast are one of the better teams in the league. Dundee, as I said in my earlier prediction video on this channel, they're one of the sort of middle table teams, and Belfast brought in some good guys over this off-season, so I think Belfast could take the win there. Then it's Coventry versus Manchester, and I'm going to go with Manchester for this one, I think. Manchester have had a pretty strong start to the season, more so than Belfast, I would say, and Coventry haven't. So this game is quite a difficult one, I would say. It's one of those games that it's either Coventry, they've had a bit of a bad run recently, they can come out and then have a really good game that can set them going for a little while, or Manchester are going to keep up their top form with the good players that they've got on their team and keep it rolling. So I'm thinking Manchester can take this one. I'm thinking purely for the fact that they've shown that they're a lot stronger this season compared to something like last season, and Coventry have struggled so far this season as they did last year. So I'm going to go with Manchester on this one. Then we have Cardiff against Sheffield. Now this is a really tough one to choose, isn't it? But I have decided to go with the Cardiff Devils. Now, the Cardiff Devils against the Sheffield Steelers was the matchup for the Elite League Championship, the Playoff Championship, and the Challenge Cup Championship. So, with the Cardiff Devils taking 2 of those 3 victories. And the Cardiff Devils, they've had some experience in the Champions Hockey League this year. They've got a solid team. They kept most of their team intact from last year. I'm really impressed with the Cardiff Devils this year, actually. The fact that they managed to keep so many players around on their team. They only picked up like a handful of guys to join their team this year, compared to the rest of the league, which picked up like a dozen guys, you know. So I think that Cardiff will take this game. I think it will be a very good game to watch, which we'll get onto later. But yeah, Cardiff Devils, I'm going with this one. Then we have the Braehead Clan versus the Milton Keynes Lightning. And I'm going to have to go with the Braehead Clan here. I think the Milton Keynes Lightning, they showed themselves to be a very good hockey club, and they deserve to be in the Elite League with their victory against the Belfast Giants. However, I think Braehead, they've managed to win the Scottish Elite Cup, which, I mean, was against some teams that aren't necessarily as strong as the rest of the competition in the Elite Ice Hockey League. But I do think that Braehead will put up a good they'll put up a good goal, I think. I think they have got some good players back. They've got guys like Colin Shields that have joined back on the team. So I think that Braehead will take this one. I think Milton Keynes, they might start off well, but then once the season sort of carries on and the fatigue starts to get in and they don't have that experience in the league, that's where they'll start to kind of see themselves fall down in the standings. But I'm going to go with Braehead purely for the fact that new team, they have got a win. They could surprise me. They could well win this game. But Braehead, I think, are the stronger team. So I'm going to go with Braehead. I don't know if you heard that. Then we have the Guildford Flames against the Nottingham Panthers. And I am definitely going for the Nottingham Panthers. Not because I am biased towards the Nottingham Panthers and they are my favourite elite ice hockey league team, but purely for the fact that I don't really compare these two in the same category. Sure, they're in the same league, but the Nottingham Panthers, like, they lost to Sheffield. Sheffield is one of the best teams in the league. Nottingham is one of the best teams in the league. Guildford is not, in my opinion. I mean, they're a good team, and once again, they deserve to be here. They managed to beat the Cardiff Devils 8-4, which is a very good argument against what I'm saying. However, the Nottingham Panthers, they have got a solid lineup this year. If they get over the defensive problems that they had in their game against Sheffield, then they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in this Elite League season. And I think Guildford, once again, similar to Milton Keynes, they might get off to a bit of a good start, but then the fatigue will kick in and the tiredness will kick in. But I think that Nottingham, they're in a different league to the Guildford Flames. It is really like a top team versus a bottom team, in my opinion. So Nottingham, I'm having them take that game against the Guildford Flames. And then lastly, on the 16th of September, we have the Edinburgh Capitals against the Fife Flyers. And I'm going to go with the Fife Flyers for this one. The Fife Flyers, they did get into the final of the Scottish Cup, whereas Edinburgh didn't. Fife got second, Edinburgh got third. Edinburgh were last in the league last year. So I'm a little bit sceptical about Edinburgh this year. Like, they might produce some good wins, and they might show themselves to be quite good in some regards. But I don't think they've changed enough in order to shoot themselves up the table to at least mid or top of the league, if you know what I mean. And Fife have managed to keep some solid guys together, and I think they're a relatively decent team. Fife is one of those teams that I think could be a bit of a dark horse, you know? Like, you always have the top ones like Cardiff, Nottingham, Sheffield, Belfast. Then if you get a team like Fife or Dundee, they're like my two dark horse teams in the Elite League. Like, if you just get one of them jumping, you're like, well, hang on a minute, what are they doing there? They shouldn't be there, but they are there, and that's the most important thing. So I'm going to go with Fife for this one, purely, well, it's going to be kind of based on the results from last year, and the results that have taken place so far this year, and the fact that I think Fife just generally have a better team than Edinburgh so far this year. So I'm going to go with Fife. And then we have the games on the 17th of September. This is Sunday, I believe. Yes, it is. So, we start with Braehead versus Coventry. I'm going to go with Braehead once again. I think they could potentially sweep this weekend, the Braehead clan. That will help them out very nicely, I would think. Coventry, they're struggling. They're not doing very well so far. I don't think they've actually got a win so far this year yet, in the actual season compared to pre-season. So, I think that Braehead will take this. They are a stronger team than Coventry. Coventry have not really done enough to make themselves a legitimate force in the Elite League this year. So I'm going to go Braehead on this one. I think they could take both games that they play this weekend. Then we have the Milton Keynes Lightning against the Manchester Storm. And I'm going to go the Manchester Storm once again. I think they're going to sweep their weekend as well. Purely for the fact that they are playing very well at the moment. And the guys that they've picked up are actually producing really well for their team. So I figure, why not? Milton Keynes might take it. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But I think Manchester is the better team. Manchester have been one of these teams that have been sitting near the bottom of the table ever since they joined the Elite League. But this could be the season that they kind of jump themselves up. Because they've changed their GM. I think they've changed their coach. Don't quote me on that. And they have brought in a load of personnel that are actually really helping their team. To the point where I think the only team they've lost to so far is the Sheffield Steelers. And I mean, Sheffield Steelers, they've won the Elite League 5 times since it joined or started. So I think Manchester are doing alright. I think they'll be fine this year. So yeah, I'm going with Manchester on that one. Then we have the Nottingham Panthers versus the Cardiff Devils. This will also be a game to watch this season. Cardiff have a difficult weekend, don't they? They have to play Sheffield and Nottingham in one weekend. This one could go either way, just as much as the Cardiff-Sheffield game could go. But I am going to say that the Nottingham Panthers will sweep their weekend also and take a pair of wins. I just think Nottingham have the better team. I think Cardiff have a very strong team, don't get me wrong, and provided the Nottingham Panthers don't play Sam Gospel and they actually play Michael Garnett, please Nottingham, if you want to win, then I think that the Panthers could sweep this weekend for themselves. I think the Panthers will get this win. They have more experience with the CHL, for example. They're doing much better in the Champions Hockey League. You might argue that that's got nothing to do with it. I think that has something to do with it. I think that the confidence on the Nottingham Panthers side is sky high. They're top of a European group in a European tournament, which we shouldn't be the top of. Cardiff, they got a win against HC Davos, which was an incredibly big win. However, they lost to Guildford 8-4 last game. They beat a team the day before. I can't remember exactly. I did just read it out about 10 minutes ago. But they have lost against one of the new teams 8-4. It's not as if they lost 2-1. They got blown out of that game 8-4 by the Guildford Flames, a team that had just won, because of that game, their first game ever in the league. So I think Cardiff are a bit shaky at the moment. I don't know how they're going to produce. I'd like to see them bounce back because Cardiff are a great team. But the question is, will they take anything from that 8-4 loss with them? Will that make them a bit shaky starting the Nottingham game? And can Nottingham, with their confidence being sky high, even though they lost to the Steelers in a very close game and blew their lead completely, can they use their confidence and use that momentum to maybe run the score up relatively early? So by the time Cardiff get into the game, by the time they get into the game, they're not really in the game, because the score's too high, if you know what I mean. So this will be a very interesting one to watch. I, for sure, want to check this one out, and hopefully I'll get the chance to see it. If it's on Cardiff live stream platform, then brilliant. If it's not, then I can't see it. Brilliant. Anyway, moving on. Then we have a game between the Sheffield Steelers and the Guildford Flames, which I would just like to add I will be attending next Sunday. So if you are around the Guildford Flames rink, if you find me, or if you want to try and find me, come and try and find me and say hey. I don't mind. Come and say hey. If you want a picture, I don't know. I don't know if I'm at that level of fame or whatever that you might want a selfie or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to be at the game. So if you find me and you want to come say hey. I'm pretty chill. We'll have a chat about hockey. I like it. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Sheffield Steelers for this one. Yeah, sorry Guildford. I'm coming to see a game, but I'm going with Sheffield on this one. I mean, sure, Guildford beat one of the best teams in the Elite League 8-4 in the Cardiff Devils. The Sheffield Steelers are looking a lot stronger, I think. However, I might say that Guildford could take this because of the fact of the injuries for the Sheffield Steelers. That didn't affect them really, or too much. It didn't affect them in the final score against the Nottingham Panthers on Sunday. But if they're having to sign guys to cover injuries, then they've got a bit of a problem in their locker room. They're not in sync, if you know what I mean. They're not all... The chemistry isn't as top as it could be. Whereas with Guildford, they're coming off their first win ever and a blowout victory. So their confidence is going to be pretty high. So I'm thinking that Guildford might give Sheffield a run for their money. They might even win it, I don't know. But I'm going to go with the experience and the talent and the convention on this one and say that Sheffield are going to take this victory. Then we have the Belfast Giants and the Edinburgh Capitals taking a game against each other on the 17th. I'm going to go Belfast. Belfast are looking pretty strong this year, even though they did lose against Milton Keynes. And Edinburgh, as I said earlier, one of the weaker teams in the league. Don't think they've done enough to really fight for the top of the league. And Belfast is one of the top teams in the country, and they'll show it, I think, against Edinburgh. I think that depth will come in. I think that confidence will come in. I think their goal-scoring talent will come in, and we will see that the Belfast Giants take a win against Edinburgh, or at least I think so. And then lastly, for the 17th of September, we have the Fife Flyers versus the Dundee Stars. And I'm going to go with Dundee on this one. As I said, my two dark horse teams, Fife and Dundee, but I'm going to go Dundee. They may have finished fourth in the Scottish Elite Cup. But you know what? This one could go either way for me, I think. But I'm going to go Dundee. I'm going to break convention a little bit. Most of these I've kind of gone with the conventional / on paper answer. But I'm going to go Dundee for this one, just to mix it up a little bit and see what happens. And then also we have one game on the 19th of September, which is a Wednesday, I believe, or a Tuesday. Something like that. I think it's a Tuesday. It would make sense if it's 2 days after the Sunday the 17th. So yeah, it's a Tuesday. Between the Dundee Stars and the Sheffield Steelers. And I'm going to go Sheffield once again. So yeah, I think the Sheffield Steelers, they could potentially get 2 wins out of 3 this week. I think Dundee, whilst I've got them to beat the Fife Flyers, Sheffield, once again, one of the best teams in the league. I'm going to go with convention on this because maybe you don't want to count out a team like Dundee, but when you've got a team like Sheffield there, you'd be a fool to bet against them, if you know what I mean. When the Sheffield Steelers or the Nottingham Panthers or the Cardiff Devils, if they're not playing each other and they're playing one of the lower teams, or one of the teams that you think will be lower, or I think will be lower, I'd be a fool to bet against them, you know. I just think, yep, I'll just go with Sheffield because chances are they're going to win because they've got a super roster for an Elite League team. They've got brilliant chemistry. They've kept quite a lot of the team intact from last year. They won the playoffs last year, I might add, so I think they'll be all right. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sheffield. Then the last segment that I have, I would like to call One to Watch. In this quick segment, I recommend my game of the week for the upcoming week and the one you should definitely watch over the next week and why. So the first one to watch for this podcast series will be the game between the Cardiff Devils and the Sheffield Steelers on the 16th of September on a Saturday. The defending playoff champions and the defending Challenge Cup and League champions are meeting for the first time this season. You can't really miss it, can you? Like, it's one of those things that you have to watch. I'll be keeping an eye on this one especially through the next week. This is one that I'm going to keep an eye on, maybe watch it if I get the chance. But this is one that I think any fan of the Elite League, unless your favourite team is playing that day, this is one that you need to watch. If you want to see how good the Elite League can be, and just why these teams are the top teams, and why this is the top circuit in our country, this is one of those games to watch, you know. But I don't worry, I know I've been talking a lot about Sheffield, Cardiff and Nottingham in the top teams. I will give the rest of the teams some love, especially in the one to watch category, over the next few weeks, provided we do the next few episodes. And I won't just focus on the top teams, but you can't not take a look at this game if you want to see the best the Elite League has to offer, you know. Like, this is one of those games that you have to watch if you're a fan of the Elite League, regardless of which team you support, because it's two of the best teams and two teams that met in some very key games last year, going against each other to prove which one is the best team at the moment. I mean, you can think about playoffs, you can think about the league champions, you can think about the Challenge Cup, but it's all about you're only as good as your last game, you know. So if the Cardiff Devils win, then people say Cardiff's the better team, they beat Sheffield. You know, that's the way people do it, and vice versa. Sheffield's the better team, they beat Cardiff. I'm sure Steelers fans are saying that about the Nottingham game that just happened. We beat Nottingham, therefore we're better than Nottingham. You know, it's a good thing to think by, because if you beat somebody, chances are, or there is a high likelihood that you are better than them. I mean, I don't agree with the Sheffield and Nottingham bit, but still. Anyway, so we are now coming to the end of the inaugural podcast, which means I want to talk about a new segment I would like to include for next week's episode. So provided this gets the viewership it needs, I would like to introduce Comment or Comments of the Week, where I take either one comment or a collection of comments, dependent on how many there are, that are placed on the comment section of this video on YouTube, and have a quick look through them at the start of every podcast, give a shout out to you guys, make sure that you guys are featured, and kind of give you guys a voice in this podcast. And make sure your opinion is heard too, because otherwise I'm just sitting here telling you lots of stuff. I want to hear what you guys say back. If you're like, Odd Man Rush, I don't agree with that score. I think that Dundee are going to beat Sheffield on Tuesday. Fair enough. Tell me. Tell me and tell me why, and your comment could get featured at the start of the podcast. I want to have as much sort of back and forth from you guys as possible. I think where this podcast could fall down is if I just tell you everything that I think. I like to try and think about what I'm saying while I'm doing it. I like to challenge what I'm saying with these things while I do this podcast. You've probably heard it as I've done this podcast. I've gone, this team could win. Oh, but however, this team might win because of this. Like, I like to try and give it relatively balanced whilst giving a decisive, I think this team's going to win. But if you have anything, maybe an important milestone that I missed last week, an important signing that I missed last week, a player that I should have mentioned because of an amazing goal or a solid night that they performed where they got a hat-trick and 1,000,000 points, then let me know, and I will feature some of the comments at the start of next one, give you guys a shout out, so you guys are included. Why not? You guys are the people watching it, why not have you on board as well? So yeah, I'm thinking about doing that, and make sure you have an opinion, so leave me your comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think about this week's Elite League. Oh, and one more thing, I'm planning on releasing this podcast every Monday night. If another day makes more sense, then do let me know, because we do have some midweek games. As we've seen next Tuesday, there is a game. Would it make more sense to push the podcast to the Wednesday, perhaps? Because then we'll have all the games that week sorted out. We won't have to worry about that before. So yeah, do let me know what is the best day to record this podcast. So I'm not thinking weekends, although it'd be easier for me. They're the time that the games actually happen, so it would be a bit silly to record it then. But anyway, that was my inaugural EIHL Weekly Roundup podcast. What do you think about this idea and the potential for it to become a regular thing? Let me know in the comments below, and also leave me your comments on how the Elite League went so far this week for your team or the teams that you despise. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Make sure this video gets the attention that it needs so we can create another episode. But please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye!